I've seen it. And just a year ago, one of the guys that are incarcerated at a prison I was at, he came up to me at the class and he started to look different. After 3 classes, he literally looked different. His eyes were brighter. He was taken care of. He was well kempt. Like he walked differently. And he said at the end of class, he was like, "Do you know what you're doing?" And I was like, "Yeah." Like, I'm thinking like, "Yeah, we just did a bunch of yoga. We meditated. Like, you look way more better. Like, you look
Yeah.
much better." Like, he goes, "You are literally bringing people back from the dead."
The extraordinary new frequency that you have introduced by bringing in your methods of meditation, your methods of yoga, your methods of creative writing into our prison systems.
Well, I'll go back to around the time my mom died. 6 months after my mom died, my childhood best friend died. She had also had cancer. At that point, I decided I was going to become a yoga teacher. I was going to go take a one-way ticket to South America, do my yoga teacher training, and then I thought I was going to come back to the States and just start working at a school again, teaching art and teaching yoga in the evening. But I knew that I was meant to teach. Yoga was so helpful to me, and it was an avenue for me connecting to my mom, and I was realizing that the yoga was helping me connect to that other world. I'm going to stay in New York City for the summer before that I leave for Peru, and I needed a summer job for 2 months in the summer. It was July and August, and so I got a job at a juvie center. But no, a juvie center is a prison for youth that have done something. So that now they're put in a facility and they sleep there. And if it's a good, decent program, if it's a decent facility, they have programs. I was hired to co-facilitate the painting of a mural. So we have like 16, 17-year-olds that were hired, and it was a well-funded program. So we painted this awesome mural in the facility. And I learned so much that summer from them. And I learned a lot about the prison system and how much help it needed. And I was deeply inspired by the youth there who were forced to take their circumstance and decide which direction they wanted to go. It was like all of these things were stacked against them, and they had to decide, am I going to continue to see the evil in the world and act on that and move towards that? Or am I going to find the good in the world and attract more of that in my life? And so my work in the prisons is really just like reminding these guys that they have that light inside of them, and reminding like it's starting to go out a little bit, or it's kind of a little bit dimmer, and sort of getting it back on, and then reminding them to do the practices. For me, it was yoga, meditation, and writing, and I do that in the classes.
Yes.
Them to do this stuff on their own so that because they can do that all in their cell. I mean, so they can do yoga, they can write, and they can meditate where they are. And so that's why I love that combination.
Everyone has a story. Everyone has a defining moment. Let me let you in on the secret that led them to their goal. Their strength lies solely in their tenacity. Welcome to Tenacious Thoughts. I am your host, Kimberly, Tenacious T, Tocco. Hello, my lovelies, and welcome to Tenacious Thoughts. Today we have a guest with us that not only brings me calm, but someone that actually inspires me. And to be completely vulnerable and honest, which is where we're going with this, a little bit of envy, because she is so gifted. She is so knowledgeable, and she is so dialed in that you just can't help but love her. Let me introduce Leah Gooch, who is a breakthrough intuitive to help guide you through the most essential parts of becoming and changing the trajectory of your life. Leah, please introduce yourself and share a little bit about you.
Thank you so much, Miss Kimberly. It is an absolute pleasure to be here today. So as Kimberly said, my name is Leah Gooch. I'm in upstate New York. That's where I live. And I've been doing meditation for a number of years now, probably 10, 13 years or so, 10 years ago. I think it's when I started and really committed to the practice of meditation. because it transformed my life. I did it for 4 minutes a day for 2 weeks straight. And I said, if this doesn't do something incredible, then I'll do it when I want to do it and not feel like I should do it. My life had an altering moment in the classroom where I was teaching. At the time I was teaching art to little kids. It was in this moment that I had with those students in the classroom that I recognize the power of shifting where our thoughts are and connecting our thoughts to the field of energy and using that. And when you're in alignment, you're able to expand it out and positively affect those around you, and therefore change and shift the behavior of those around you.
I love that so much. So, we're going to get into a lot of your background, what projected you into meditation and this moment with the children. But let's start with that. So, I do want to talk about your family life, and I do want to talk about what suddenly changed for you that you were like, I have to seek and go within. So, let's start with your family life. Who are you? Upstate New York, what is the impression that you really want people to feel rather than, oh, upstate New York, she knows this, she knows that, she's privileged, because that's not the case. Please share with us.
Well, I did grow up a bit privileged. I was a little girl in a family. We had five in our family, my parents, my older brother, and a younger sister. And when I was a kid, though, I always wanted to teach. So I would have a little classroom of imaginary students in my parents' basement where I taught. I had 12 imaginary students, and I would fill out their little homework and their little work and their little folders. One kid was always absent, so I'd take attendance. And I loved school. And so I would come home from school and I would actually teach some of the lessons I learned in school, which was great because I was able to kind of reinforce what I was learning in school. And I would play dress up. I was up there in the front of the classroom with a little big oversized skirt and shirt with a belt tied up, maybe sometimes a hat. But I always wanted to teach. And then I also loved art. I loved painting. I loved drawing. When I was a child, my parents preferred if we read books or drew, and they didn't want us really watching TV much at all. So I didn't love reading when I was a kid. That changed, but back then I didn't want to read much.
So let's quickly talk about that. This child that used her imagination to build a classroom, to build an atmosphere of teaching. Because what is imagination? Imagination is our divinity. The human mind cannot come up with anything. The human mind is a processor. It needs to be fed information. So where did that information come from? As a young girl, bringing forth a classroom from her imagination had to be fed from somewhere. So as you're speaking, as you're fulfilling this call of the imagination, which we suppress in children, which we shouldn't, what was it that you felt as you're standing before your imaginative students that brought you joy?
It was a feeling of duty, which is strange. I've never been asked this question that you're asking. It's a really good question. I haven't thought about that. But it was a feeling of a duty I had to these imaginary children that they were owed what I had learned. And it was as if I was practiced. Now I realize how I still to this day learn something and then want to teach it. It's just an intuitive desire inside of me, and it sort of circulates through me, and it strengthens my connection to the information, and it ensures that I keep getting more coming at me.
Yes. Yes. So that is a testament to allowing our children to expand on what naturally comes up within them. To an adult, it may seem like play, but to a child, it is where they want their path to fall on. It is the true calling. When we're at our youngest state, it is our purest connection to source, to creator, to God, to purpose. So walk us through a little bit. There's this beautiful, imaginative child who is expressing herself and teaching, yet there is this dynamic. Where did the conflict come in? Because your siblings do something else.
Mm-hmm. I love it. That's a good question. The first conflict that I remember experiencing was when we moved into an even larger house, which had But there wasn't one memory that just came back when we went to that larger house. I remember being in the basement when my mom said, this is where your classroom could be. And it was a small room, but I remember feeling really validated of like, wow, we're buying this house and you're already scouting, albeit it was a small space, but it was where the chalkboard was going to go and where I was going to have my classroom. And I remember being in that room thinking, okay, this will do. I think I can fit 12 in here. Okay. I remember like in that moment thinking and also feeling appreciated and seen. And so there was a lot of fostering of the creativity, which was so helpful. And also with art too, I was constantly doing art projects and later became an art teacher. And then a few years into living in that house, I was in fourth grade when we moved there. And then as time went on, I felt like my parents weren't getting along the way they used to. It was just different. It felt like there was more tension around money. It was when people talk about like a house being house poor, it always felt like there
Mhm.
was much more restrictions, even though we were living in this beautiful home on this like estate-like place. There always felt like this constriction around we're overspending.
I love this point right now because we're in a state of the world where it is very obvious that there's an elite group and then there's a group that is trying so hard just to be on the trajectory of the elite group. So, how does that reflect as you grew up? How does that reflect acknowledging the conflict on trying to keep up with the Joneses, yet still remaining who you truly are? Let's take, for example, I have to have that house. I have to have that yacht. And if I don't, I am not worthy. So I'm going to step into that. I'm going to spend all my money getting the yacht. I'm going to spend all my money getting the house. Yet when I finally do get that, I am empty still
Yeah.
because I just spent the money. And just because I have all this opulence and things to show, I am empty because that's
Yeah.
not what wealth is. That's where your parents went. They went into this opulence. They went into this keeping up with the Joneses, let's get bigger, let's get better. Yet you as a child could feel, this this didn't advance my family, right?
Yeah, it felt like it created much more discord, and there were don't. I mean, it was amazing in aspects of it. I mean, the house was amazing. The having a pool, a tennis court, like a basketball hoop on the court. I mean, it was wild to have this privilege, and we were able to have friends over, and it was we would have these gatherings. But there, it did feel like there was more of a disconnect between my parents, and that
Yes.
there's just sort of a pulling apart. And I remember probably about 5 years ago, I did like went into a deep state of meditation and realized that I associated money with a less happy relationship. And that was built into like I felt like if I had a lot of money, then I wasn't gonna have a really good relationship with a
Yes.
partner. And so once I noticed that, I've been undoing that, and now I've been with somebody for the last 5 years, which is amazing.
Yes, and that's the whole point of what I'm trying to talk about here is, a lot of us put so much emphasis on I, we're taught get your big house and get your big car and get your clothes because if you do that, more people will be attracted to you, but that's not the case now, is it?
Mm-mm.
Because you, dear woman, attracted the most powerful woman speaker on the planet, bar none. I don't care who you are. Dr.
Yeah.
Stormy Wellington, when you get in her presence, you understand you attracted her. And you were not wealthy at the time. You were just putting your stuff together, but your energy was wealthy. Your
Mm-mm.
love was thick with generosity, right?
Mm. Yeah.
And that's what she felt. Now, granted, of course, we all want that ease that money brings, but that is not true wealth and that shouldn't be the goal. And as you have progressed in who you are, in the wealth of who you are, take us through a little bit of that journey through your education. What drew you to be like, you know what? I need to meditate. I need to connect because there's something else out there besides this.
Yeah. Well, my mom, she was diagnosed with cancer. What brought me to this point of realizing I needed to meditate I dabbled when I was in high school. My dad taught me how to meditate when I was in high school. And it was a nice thing for us to do sometimes. And he would meditate. He practiced meditation for 15, 20 minutes in the morning. And it was always a thing of like, all right, I'm meditating, while we're getting ready for school. So it's like, don't interrupt me unless you really need to. And it was a he modeled that for me, of that practice of saying, I'm physically here, but please keep it quieter and do not interrupt if necessary, unless necessary. And so my dad taught me how to meditate and just bringing my awareness to the present moment. There's that simple but sometimes challenging practice of doing just that. And then fast forward, I decided I was going to become an art teacher. So I went to college and undergrad for art teaching, got a job in New York City, moved down to Brooklyn, was living in New York City and teaching there. So I was doing that for 7 years. And then the summer after my seventh year of teaching, that was when I got a call from my mom on a Sunday. And she was asking me questions about my weekend. And I remember thinking, she's asking these questions very methodically. Like she's got like a laundry list of she's asking these questions. Like she's trying to tell me something, but she's asking these questions in a more formal way than I've ever heard her ask. And I remember thinking that was kind of weird. And then at the end, she said, diagnosed with ovarian cancer, and it was stage 4 at that point, and it's like known as like a silent killer. So
Yes.
subtle discomfort, pain that she had that she didn't get checked out because it was always serving everybody else and helping everybody else, and didn't want to kind of complain or make much of it. So then once she had a mass that had to be drained, that was when they went in and saw what it was. So after that,
That was your sledgehammer.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
That was your sledgehammer. And
Mhm.
I like to illustrate that a lot. That we can be going about our lives and we can set our goals, which you absolutely did. You went to college, you became an art teacher, you expanded on your beautiful gifts in art. Yet at the same time, there was a sledgehammer. Sledgehammer to knock you into a line of purpose. And it started with your mother.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then once she lived for another year, and I remember being in a state once she had passed away where I just was like, I will do anything to hear her or like feel her, connect with her. And it was desperate.
Yes.
I was like, I know there's a way. I know there is a way for me to connect to her. And I had at that point, I maybe heard of mediums. I had, I knew a little bit about this stuff, but I never really, there was always something else. I was like, I don't know what it is, but there's something else. And then around that time was when I started meditating. And I said, I'm going to do 4 minutes a day because 5 minutes is too long. That was my reason for 4.
Let's talk a little bit about connecting, right? When people pass away, and I myself lost my 13-year-old son, right, in horrible circumstances. And I needed answers. I needed to hear. I needed to connect. But I was always taught, being raised the way I was raised, that any sort of connection, any sort of reception of anything beyond this physical plane was evil. That if you actually connected, it was wrong. So I'd always avoided that my whole life. Yet when I lost my son, no one could tell me otherwise. And I actually met with my Catholic priest at the time, and he said to me, there are people that can connect to you. If you read the Bible, and I don't mean to bring religion into this, but there's many that have visions in the Bible. There are many that connect to past loved ones. Mother Mary, the Rosary has said, we're connecting with a past loved one to say, Mary, hear my prayer. Mary, pass my prayer on to God. Who's to say that if we're sitting here praying to saints and Mary and many other deities that we can't ourselves connect? And why can't we? And that's where you were, right? Like, why can't I hear my mother, whom I love and am connected with? Why can't I? So yeah, walk us through that.
I felt like she was close. It was like I felt like she was close, but I couldn't hear it. And I had started meditating. I kept meditating. I was in therapy. Therapy was hugely helpful. I had an amazing therapist, and my mom paid for the first 10 sessions because it wasn't covered by insurance. My mom, 6 months before she died, she was like, I found someone. She had like this thick Long Island accent. She's like, I found someone. And I was hesitant. I had gone to therapy a little bit, but never really connected with a therapist, so I didn't really have that much faith in it. And then my mom could see my face of, all right, I'll maybe try. And she was like, I looked at her Facebook. She looks like our, she's, she wears black and wears silver just like us. You know what I mean? She was like, you'll like her. I think you'll like her. She was recommended by my mom's therapist. So my mom, she's laying in bed because at this point she's in the bed most of the time, and she writes a check. I think it was like $100 per session. She writes a check for $1,000, rips it off, hands it. She goes, no bullshit. I was like, all right. So I called this woman, and I was scared to call her. I remember where I was in my apartment, and I called her and she didn't answer. And I thought, oh, thank God. Because it was one of those like 3, 2, 1. I'm just going to, everything at that point I was doing, I had to count down 3, 2, 1 because it was so hard for me to get up to do much. And I was still working, but everything was such a struggle. So it was like 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1. And so it was 3, 2, 1. I called this woman, Roberta. She didn't pick up. I said, oh, thank God. I put the phone down. And then she called me back like 2 seconds later. I was like, and then it's too late. So I
Oh
picked up.
shit, she called me back.
Yeah, exactly. So then I started meeting with her, and it was hugely helpful. I met with her once a week, and I didn't enjoy going. Each time I went, I didn't want to go, but once I left, I felt amazing. Once I was there, I was very thankful. And I remember there was a moment, like a breaking point with her even, where I felt as though she was bringing me to the point of having a little bit of an anxiety attack or something, not an anxiety attack, but like being in a state of being really uncomfortable. And it was as if she had opened a door and then put her foot in the door and just stood there like, I'm right here. I'm right here.
Mm,
And,
mm.
and I was able to move through that threshold. And once I was able to do that one time with her, I was able to start to reprogram my brain to trust that I can do things that were scary. And that was when I started doing things every day. I tried to do something every day that scared me.
So that is a very relevant point. You felt a tangible, which helped you believe that you could actually do it. I find it so interesting that we as humans need a tangible in order to believe. And in most cases, when we're talking esoteric, when we're talking crossing the veil, crossing the threshold, and I will remind the audience once again, a Catholic priest also said there are people in the Bible and otherwise who were able to receive messages from beyond the veil. So when you emotionally said, I want to hear my mother, I want to connect to my mother, you began to feel her. And when you began to feel her, like Yeshua would say, it is not me, but your faith that healed you. Would you say it was your extension of belief and energy that was able to connect you to that esoteric or beyond the veil and believe?
100%. It couldn't be ego. I had to be on my knees and just like guide me. I will give it a shot. I'll give it a chance. I'll listen. I'll follow directions. That was another big one, feeling like I was being told certain things and saying, all right, I'll follow the directions. But if you're throwing a bone, let me know. And then little things would start happening. I remember I needed a coffee press and a wall clock. And I was like, all right, these are two things I needed. And I was teaching art in New York City, and I was still pretty I wanted to save my money. It was New York City. It was expensive. So I was still trying to do things. It wasn't like I was just Amazoning and, ordering things. And I was riding my bike, and I saw a table set up where the people were selling stuff outside. And I saw a coffee press sitting out there. And I thought, well, I'll be damned. So I pull over, I stop my bike, and they're like, all right, that's cute. I appreciate that. And right next to it was a wall clock.
Wow.
And I was like, okay.
Wow. And those are the tangibles we're talking about. Those are the little things that a lot of people will miss. And I'd love to share a little story myself that, again, being raised a Jehovah's Witness and then becoming Catholic. And of course, I had gifts and imagination and all this. But no, Kim, that's not how it works. You stay on this path, follow what everyone's saying. So when my son passed away, his favorite candy was Tootsie Rolls. And at his reception after the funeral, every table had Tootsie Rolls on it. And my sister had passed away years before, but lo and behold, through the door, her ex-husband and her 2 children came in that I hadn't talked to or seen for years. And they came in, it was lovely. I got to be with the kids, and it helped heal my heart a little bit. And, you know, again, Tootsie Rolls on the center table. And I said to them, as they're eating Tootsie Rolls, you know, I'd love to come over and just have a visit, because they still lived in my sister's house, which I had not been to in years. About a week later, I go over to my sister's house. I'm enjoying my time. Her ex is very, very friendly, very nice. I'm talking with the kids. I'm like, you know, I'm really thirsty. I'm going to go get a glass of water. I grab a glass out of her cupboard, same glasses I remember her buying because he hadn't changed a thing. I go over to the fridge. I click ice. I put the cup in, and a Tootsie Roll falls out. A Tootsie Roll falls.
How did that even, how did that happen?
Exactly. I still have the wrapper today.
Oh my gosh.
Still have the wrapper today. And yeah, it makes me emotional because I needed it tangible from my son to say, are you still with me? And there was no other way I was going to believe it than going to my sister's house, who I loved very much, and who had been passed away for a long time, mending that relationship between her ex and the children, and going and putting my, even if they were to say, okay, Kim's going to come here at some point, let's just throw a Tootsie Roll in there. There's no way they would have known that my timing to put the glass under there, the Tootsie Roll would fall out. No way. No way.
Oh my God. I have chills all over.
Yeah. So for those,
that was a tag team effort on there.
Total tag team.
Like, we're gonna get her. We're gonna get her heart.
Okay, we're gonna show her. But that's what I'm trying to say. And now, of course, that's not going to happen that way for everyone. But you got to pay attention. You have to pay attention, or you miss it. Part of paying attention is going within.
That's what I was going to, that is exactly the part, is it's going within so you can hear, so that you are guided, because you're being guided to the different places, like you in that moment of saying, all right, I'm thirsty. I'm going to go get some water. I just got chills again. I'm going to get water. Oh my God. I cannot imagine seeing that happen.
I collapsed and cried.
I bet. A jaw drop. Amazing. Absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's like you said, go within and be able to listen. And that's what Coach says, like hear the call, hear the voice from within.
Yes.
And follow the directions.
So you have been this art teacher, and you've been taught meditation from an early age. You've had a calling to teach from an early age. What brought you to, and Dr. Stormy Wellington. What brought you to Stormy Wellington, which, in my opinion, opened up the curtains and began to show the world who you are?
100%. 100%. There was time in my life before Dr. Stormy Wellington, and then after.
Exactly.
Before, it's like a real thing. It's like a threshold, because once you see her and she sees you, you can't unsee it. And once I met her in person, I could never experience. It's unlike anything else. I mean, you could feel it like a magnet. I remember, and I'll go back to your question, but I just gotta say, I remember being in Miami the first time I went down there, and I saw her. It was at this event, and I didn't see her. I'd already seen her prior, and it was tears as soon as I saw her in real life the first time.
Thank you for being there, for real. You're amazing. I remember you very wholeheartedly. Some people come and you don't remember them, but then some people give you something to be remembered by. And your energy was definitely one of the memorable energies that I got this weekend. So thank you.
It was so powerful.
Yes.
And then later on in the evening, or early evening, we were somewhere, and I didn't see her, but I felt her. And I looked around. I was like, what is this feeling? I feel like there's this force, like a magnetic pushing away, like when you put two poles together. That's what it
Yeah.
was like. I don't know, but if you can't feel energy, that's what it can feel like if it's super clear sometimes. It can feel like two magnets, two north pushing towards each other. And that's what I felt. And I thought she must be close to here. And then sure enough, I like move around and I see her and her daughter. And then Vanessa, her ride or die assistant,
Yes.
co-captain, I thought too, and there was a thought of thinking I shouldn't be this close to her without me seeing her, and like I shouldn't have been able to get that close to her without her knowing it, kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
And then Vanessa is right there. She goes, make sure nobody else comes in this, like, watch it right here. Like
Yeah.
this is shoulder, like you're touching it, and there's. So, but yeah, so I just had to share that because her energy.
Tell me about when you actually got to look in her eyes and you first met her.
I was in the SVW or the Stormy Wellington, like the headquarters, and we were in the hallway. And everybody was like, had prepped the space. Everybody was all excited, and they were like, "All right, she's coming, she's coming." And it was the Christmas. It was like the night before the donation drive where she gives away all the toys. It was November of 2022. So she was arriving soon, and then she comes in, and you know how she like dances down the hallway, and I just started tearing up like immediately. It was just couldn't, and it's so different. Like I've seen celebrities, I've been around that stuff before, and I've never just started tearing up. I was so moved. And then she comes through and she sees me, and she knew me from guiding the meditation. I think I did at that point, I did one meditation guide.
Yeah.
And so she knew who I was. And then her face lit up and was like, "Oh my God," and like gave me a hug. And I was just so, she's so real and authentic. And it's nothing like she is online. Like she's awesome online, don't get me wrong, but her in real life is.
We gotta get into meditation, of course. It would be wrong for me to not let y'all feel this real live energy that we get from our amazing Leah. Y'all give it up for Leah Gooch. Come on. Y'all know Leah that took us on some journeys, man. Come on, y'all give it up for the one, the only Leah Gooch. Come on. Yeah, we thank you, Leah. We thank you, girl.
So let's talk about that a little bit, because there's two things to November of 2022. There was an announcement, if you want to meditate, or if you have a meditation, or if you have something to contribute to, and we're talking about a community called Girl Hold My Hand. It's been 10 years now, I believe it is, put together by Dr. Stormy Wellington, because she didn't have a community, and she really needed people to lean into her. So she started this community, which very authentically started a whirlwind of a frequency. And we all have a frequency, a song in our heart. And every once in a while, if you're lucky, through your spouse, through your children, through someone you meet, it becomes a symphony, because it all makes sense. It all sounds together. So you had come into the community of Girl Hold My Hand, and you took the courage and the initiative, regardless of her stature, regardless of, oh my gosh, am I even worthy to express what I want to express in here? And you stepped forward and you gave a meditation, and it touched her. So when she came in person, your songs were already aligned. So as she came in, the symphony began, and you felt her, and you felt worthy to be there. And that part, she made sure you knew how worthy you were. That's the difference.
Yep. And she sure did. And the people around me too. I will say, in this community, the women that push each other and support each other, it is unlike anything I've ever seen. And it's happened a number of times. And, even just us doing this is amazing. And me being able to be on this podcast with you.
Yes.
We've had conversations offline that were so helpful to me and so supportive.
Yes.
And that's what I found with the women in this group. And there were different points along the way. And I'm thinking of the moment. So I guided a meditation. I applied to, I did a little demo tape, and I said, I can guide a meditation. And up to that point, Kimberly, like, the group is mostly Black women. And so I wouldn't go on the live because I didn't want to be on the screen.
Yes.
I didn't want to be seen. but I joined and paid for the monthly membership so that I could get the meditations with her. But once I found my top, I had like two different dates that I would just do reruns every morning. It was my rerun meditation. Because it was one in July and one in August that I just loved listening to, that were they just hit right. So
Yeah.
I would mostly listen to those and then sometimes watch the new ones that were coming out that she would guide. And then it was that announcement made about that they were accepting applicants if you were interested in guiding meditation. So I
Mhm.
thought, all right, I can't really hide, not, I can't hide that. I mean, I guide meditations. I've got to at least offer and send a video in. And so I did, and I was stoked to be able to do it. And then she popped on that day on the meditation at the end of it. And she was like, who are you? And,
That little girl who taught the class to the 12 other children heard the call because that little girl was preparing you for your purpose. And that was almost, like we said, 3 years ago. And right now, just to give testimony, again, a woman who was afraid to show her color, afraid to show her gifts, afraid to be judged, kept herself quiet until her little girl in her said, nope, we have an opportunity. We're going to show you. We're going to show you what you were meant to do. And to this day, you have every Tuesday in the Girl Hold My Hand community, because we meet Monday through Thursday, 5 a.m. Pacific Coast time, 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. But you are the Tuesday fixture in a group that is 98% Black women, because we don't look at color. We look at energy. That's what Coach looks at. And Coach trusts you with her everything. And you are, as far as I'm concerned, you are the only one she allows to tap into her energy and give her messages, which is one of the things that I want to illustrate here. You are a Reiki master. You have trained for years and years. But a lot of people get confused because, Reiki is energy, is healing, it's transmutation. But girl, you're also a channel. You're also a medium. Doing your sessions, you connect to beyond the veil, just like we just talked about. Your gifts are so far beyond simple Reiki. Tell us about that.
Reiki it was my way avenue to kind of access those messages too and see those visions, because it was almost like it helped turn the lights on, and then I could receive the messages or receive the pictures and then just describe them. And yeah, the first time I heard of Reiki though, I thought this sounds a little bit like Roswell, a little weird.
So one of the things I like to say to help explain to people when you are with a gifted person like Leah is it's like Braille. Say you are blind and you have to learn to feel, you have to learn to read Braille. And Leah is the teacher that's going to help you learn to read the Braille. Leah is the one that's going to help you decipher those messages coming in, because no one understands them at first. It is a very rare person that understands the language of beyond. And Leah is one of those. Leah understands the language from beyond. She's understood it from her childhood, and she can come in and say, I feel the Braille, and I can help you decipher what it means. And at that point, when she helps you decipher, when she helps you see it, you can begin to take those shadows and those things you don't understand and be like, oh, I can hear it. I can see it. You are the teacher of what lies beyond.
You articulate it so well. I'm like, yes, that's what I do.
Yes, that is totally what you do. That is totally what you do. And I'm so honored, because even I've had my sessions. I'm due for another one, by the way. And with that being said, I want to get into the famous questions.
Let's do it.
Let's start with, what is your favorite sound or noise?
laying next to when Ryan is my partner, when he's sleeping, like, when he's sleeping soundly, and I can just like hear his breathing, and it's just calm and very like
Oh,
relaxing.
I love that. I've never heard someone say that before. That is so sweet. So it is the knowing that he is peacefully sleeping.
Yeah, he's fully sleeping and he's so relaxed. And he's so, when he's awake, he's so like intense and active and go, go, go. So when he's sleeping, he's just so peaceful. I feel like
Mhm.
that's how I feel like I've heard parents say that. Like, oh, I love my kids. Like they're so peaceful when
So
they're
true.
sleeping. And they wake up and it's just like, oh gosh.
So true. Having had 4 children, I loved it when they slept.
Exactly. Like that's kind of how oh, this is what parents must be like.
So, along those notes, what is your least favorite sound?
Nails on the chalkboard.
Yes.
I mean, you know what my trick for that though is when I hear nails on the chalkboard, I think of the sound of whipped cream being mixed around with a wooden spoon in a wooden bowl. It like soothes me. So I guess that's my other favorite sound is the sound of a spoon pushing around whipped cream.
I
So
love that. So let's take that. So let's say someone's in a situation where the noises are loud, there's things happening there that is loud. What advice would you give them at that
I'd
moment?
say picture like big thing of whipped cream, really thick whipped cream, and just moving it around with a wooden spoon in a wooden bowl.
Or maybe their favorite sound.
Yeah, or their
Yeah.
favorite sound.
Yeah. Yeah. Love that. So here's another one, and this is my favorite question I like to ask. So you've gone to sleep, the alarm's gone off, and you open your eyes. What turns you on? What brings you to the point of, oh my gosh, this is a new day? What's your turn on?
Sometimes I'll flash back to when I was a little kid and I was waking up on my birthday, in the morning of my birthday. My parents made it really special. We'd have a birthday fairy, which was like the tooth fairy. I thought the birthday fairy was universal.
Love that.
I would wake up in the morning, there would be balloons and there'd be some gifts and then this like fairy dust.
Yeah.
Because my parents didn't really give us presents. It was just the birthday fairy would show up. And so there was always this really like feeling of total excitement as a kid waking up on the morning of my birthday. And so even now to this day, sometimes if I feel like, oh, I'm tired or like I didn't sleep enough or I feel a little bit dry, I think I can just pretend that it's like my birthday.
I love that. So you wake up feeling celebrated.
Yeah. And sometimes I just pretend like, what would I do if it was my birthday today?
I love that. So again, along the same lines, what is your turn off? What is the one thing as you're going through your day that just turns you off and you're like, no.
Too much, taking in too much sugar. Like eating too much sugar and then hitting a crash and thinking, uh-oh, I didn't, we shouldn't have eaten that.
So neglecting your nutritional
Body.
health,
Yeah.
neglecting the body, which is
100%.
very interesting. Both of these answers is very telling of someone that recognizes the body as the temple,
Hmm.
that recognizes that even if we're very devoted in our prayer, very devoted in our meditations, if we are not taking care of the temple, we cannot receive to the maximum capacity at which we're supposed to.
100%. And that was, I feel like, a big thing I worked on for the last year and a half, I'd say, when I was kind of at a crossroads and feeling like I'd been trying a lot and things weren't moving as quickly as I wanted them to. And I thought, well, what do I have control over? And it was what I eat, what I drink, what I exercise, how much I sleep. I thought I'm just going to take really good care of my body and that I'll be prepared when the next opportunity happens. I'll be in the best health I can have. And so I think
Yes.
that, yeah, it's so important.
And what's interesting about what's happening in the world today, especially in America, is the continual downgrade of nutritional values. The ingredients they put into the boxed food, the canned foods, to, fast foods. It's almost like a planned bombardment on sickening the temple to keep you at a level where you don't understand or recognize that the cleaner the body is, the cleaner the fuel is, the closer you connect to that place you want to go.
Hmm. Absolutely.
And
And
that
I
And that's a big thing for you too. I mean, geez, look at you. You're glowing. You're
I'm 40, Kim. I'm 40 years
you look
old.
29, girl. You look 29. Speaking of that, what is your favorite swear word?
The F-bomb.
Yeah, of course. You can say it. I'll bleep it out. Go on, say it.
Uh,
Yeah.
there's just so many meanings for it, you know?
Yes, yes. I mean, there's the you and yeah and what the and there's just so many levels of the
Yeah.
meaning to it. And it is actually a very intelligent word. So there's nothing wrong with saying the proverbial F word. Leah, before we get to the next famous question, how would people get a hold of you, get a hold of the study? Please let us know.
On my website's, you can just Google my name, Leah Gooch, but also 4minutesaday.org. It's spelled out I meditated for 4 minutes a day. So 4minutesaday.org is the website. And, you can contact me there. And then I'm also on Instagram, Miss MS Leah Gooch, Leah, Gooch, Gooch. So those are two easy ways to find me.
The other part to this question is, if you couldn't teach, if you couldn't go into prisons, if you hadn't have gone into your intuition, what would your profession have been?
I would do illustrations for stories.
There you go.
Paint, draw.
Yeah. The last questions and my favorite question. I want you to think about a person, famous person, dead or alive. Let's not make it a relative. Let's make it a famous person that someone will recognize, again, dead or alive, that you could have dinner with. Who would it be and why?
It's funny. The first person that came to mind was Amelia Earhart.
Love that. Oh my God. Wow. I almost feel like you're connected to her somehow. Why is that?
I don't know. I've. It's weird that you say that. Not weird that you say that, but a year ago, I think or so, I had a client who I haven't thought about. Maybe that's why I thought of her because I haven't thought about her since. But my client said something like, "Hey, I have this weird like affinity for Amelia Earhart. Like kind of like a series of things that happened." She was like, "I don't know. I think I'm somehow connected to her, but I haven't thought about her in so long." But I guess I was thinking of her more because of what she did and how.
Yeah. The courage that she had. The
100%. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's like that landscape, like over the land of being like, all right, let's. There's only one way to show that this can be done, and it is to do it. I mean,
yes.
that's
So what
how.
would you ask her? What would you ask her?
What do you tell your? I would say, what do you tell your? What would you tell yourself? What is the self-talk? What is the conversation that's going on in your head when you are hearing and seeing a reality that doesn't match up with what's inside of the vision?
Okay, so I want you to close your eyes. And I want you to ask her that. And I want you to give me the answer, please.
She said, I focus more on the vision than the matter in front of me.
There you go. The
Okay,
imagination.
Amelia.
Oh my God,
Okay,
I feel her too. Like she's like, this is my girl right here. She's breaking ground, man. Oh my
let's
God,
go with it
let's do
already.
it. I love that. I love that. Well, Leah, it has been a pleasure. I love you. If you want to feel into Leah, if you want to get a part of what she spreads every Tuesday on the Girl Hold My Hand, reach out to her. She may even be able to give you a code so you can participate for a week and be a part of her energy. She has changed a lot of lives. She has changed the way I think. She's a great inspiration. And like I say, I'm extremely gifted, but it's very rare I come across someone that is just so tuned in without having to show it off in her humility, which again is very much like Yeshua, like the very, they say that those who really sit in your heart, sit in there with humility because they have nothing to prove. You have nothing to prove. You're just beautiful, you. So again, what is your website? You say your phone number for those listening, for those watching. I'll have it floated above, but please.
Perfect. I'm on my website, 4minutesaday.org, but you can text me, call me, 845-303-9729. Book a session. We'll do a reading, a Reiki session, or you can just ask questions that you have. And you can check my website. Instagram is Leah Gooch, Facebook Leah Gooch, and I have a YouTube channel too, also Leah Gooch. So check it all out.
Love it, love it. And thank you for joining us today. This is Kimberly Tocco.
At sundown, come down, think about